Why Jon Snow abandoned the Night's Watch at Castle Black. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe if you love House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and deep dives into Westerosi lore. Let's begin. Jon Snow's decision to leave the Night's Watch at Castle Black is one of the most debated and emotionally charged moments in Game of Thrones. As Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon swore a sacred oath. I am the sword in the darkness. I am a watcher on the walls. I am the shield that guards the realms of men. Yet, he ultimately abandoned his post, choosing to prioritize a greater mission over his sworn duties. Understanding Jon's departure requires a careful look at the context of the Wall, his responsibilities, his personal values, and the threats facing Westeros. It is not an act of cowardice or betrayal. It is a decision driven by moral responsibility, strategic foresight, and a commitment to the greater good. To comprehend why Jon left Castle Black, we need to examine the state of the Night's Watch in Castle Black, the existential threat posed by the White Walkers, Jon's personal conflicts and loyalties, the political and ethical implications of abandoning his oath. The Night's Watch and its oath. The Night's Watch is a sworn brotherhood tasked with defending the realms of men from threats beyond the Wall. Its members take an oath of lifelong service, renouncing lands, titles, and family. The primary mission is to guard the realm against the dangers of the far north, including wildlings, White Walkers, and other supernatural threats. Castle Black serves as the central hub of the Watch, symbolizing vigilance and duty. Jon Snow's departure challenges the rigid traditions of the Night's Watch, raising questions about honor, duty, and the limits of loyalty. The state of Castle Black. By the time Jon considers leaving, Castle Black is in turmoil. The Night's Watch is weakened by internal divisions, desertions, and the death of key leaders. Many brothers are more concerned with politics and personal grievances than the looming threat beyond the Wall. Jon himself faces constant opposition from factions resistant to his progressive leadership. The failing cohesion of the Night's Watch contributes to Jon's sense that his leadership alone is insufficient to prepare for the coming war. The White Walkers and the real threat. Jon's decision is driven primarily by the existential threat of the White Walkers. The Night King and his army of Whites pose a catastrophic threat to all of Westeros, far beyond the boundaries of the Wall. Jon understands that Castle Black alone cannot stop them, and that alliances across the realm are essential. Remaining at the Wall would limit Jon's ability to marshal forces and warn Southern leaders. In this light, abandoning the Night's Watch is a strategic choice, prioritizing the survival of the realm over adherence to tradition. Personal conflict and ethical dilemmas. Jon faces profound personal and ethical conflicts. His oath binds him to the Wall, but his conscience compels him to act against the greater threat. The lives of countless innocents hang in the balance, forcing Jon to weigh duty against morality. He struggles with the limitations of the Watch, realizing that staying put would make him complicit in potential disaster. Jon's departure is not betrayal. It is a moral imperative guided by foresight and responsibility. Political and strategic realities. Leaving Castle Black is also a politically and strategically necessary decision. Jon must unite the North, the South, and Daenerys' forces to stand a chance against the Night King. The Night's Watch alone cannot defend the realm, and Jon's role extends beyond Castle Black. By leaving, Jon positions himself to coordinate military alliances, gather intelligence, and rally support. Jon's actions illustrate a shift from local duty to global responsibility, reflecting his evolution as a leader. The burden of leadership. As Lord Commander, Jon carries the weight of leadership on his shoulders. He must make impossible choices, balancing loyalty to the Watch with the greater good. Remaining at Castle Black would represent stagnation and short-sightedness. By leaving, Jon demonstrates a mature understanding of leadership, prioritizing outcomes over appearances. Leadership in Westeros is rarely simple. Jon's decision embodies the complexity of responsibility in times of existential crisis. Relationships and loyalties. Jon's departure is also influenced by his relationships. Tormund, Davos, and other allies provide counsel and support, acknowledging the necessity of his mission. Jon must consider the welfare of the Night's Watch brothers, ensuring continuity of leadership even in his absence. His bond with Daenerys and the allied forces creates an opportunity to coordinate defense on a larger scale. These relationships highlight the tension between personal loyalty and strategic necessity. The consequences of remaining. Had Jon remained at Castle Black, the consequences could have been catastrophic. The Night King could have penetrated the wall unopposed, decimating the north. Jon's ability to forge alliances and warn key leaders would have been limited. Staying would have represented a failure of foresight and moral responsibility. Jon's departure, therefore, is a preventive measure aimed at minimizing harm and maximizing survival. The moral justification. Jon's choice can be understood as morally justified. The Night's Watch oath is intended to protect the realm, not merely defend the wall. By leaving, Jon fulfills the spirit of his oath, even if he violates its literal terms. His actions prioritize ethics and the lives of innocents over rigid formalism. This distinction between letter and spirit of the law defines Jon's moral reasoning. Internal conflict and emotional struggle. Leaving the Night's Watch is not easy. Jon grapples with guilt, doubt, and fear of judgment. He worries about how brothers and allies will perceive his departure, understanding the stain of perceived betrayal. The choice represents a personal sacrifice, as Jon risks honor, reputation, and personal identity. Jon's internal struggle adds depth to his decision, showing that difficult choices often come with emotional costs. The greater good versus personal duty. Jon's story emphasizes a recurring theme in Game of Thrones. Sometimes personal duty must yield to the greater good. Loyalty to a place or organization is secondary to protecting life and preventing catastrophe. Jon embodies the principle that true leadership requires moral courage and difficult prioritization. This philosophical framework makes Jon's departure understandable and defensible. After leaving Castle Black, Jon immediately acts to rally allies across the north and south, creating a unified force against the Night King. Coordinate with Daenerys Targaryen, combining forces for maximum effectiveness. Anticipate and counter enemy movements, leveraging intelligence to prevent disaster. His actions demonstrate that leaving the wall was a proactive, strategic measure, not abandonment. Critics and fans debate Jon's departure. Some argue it represents betrayal of his oath. Others praise Jon's moral clarity and strategic foresight. Most agree that his decision reflects complex leadership in morally gray situations, a hallmark of his character arc. Jon's choice invites reflection on